Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the first episode of Impromptucast. So, I've decided, the other series is gonna take a while, and that needs proper research and proper, just I need to go through my notes and I need to speak stuff, and that takes a while to prep. And that's a good series. I'm not saying I'm not gonna do that anymore, but it's very time consuming. So, I thought in the meantime, why not just do an impromptu cast? Just talk about what I want to without any prep. So today, for the first episode, I want to talk about Hamilton, the American musical. This episode is, well, I wanted to do it because I've been obsessed with Hamilton for the past few days since it's come out on Disney Plus. I'll go into that in more detail in a minute, but first, I wanted to say that this episode will contain spoilers for the show, which doesn't really matter because it's Hamilton. If you know about it, you've probably heard the songs. If you don't know about it, this will probably give you a nice preliminary knowledge about the American history revolution, which I had no idea about before I actually listened to the show. So might as well just start and see how it goes. So Hamilton, which is now streaming on Disney Plus for anyone to check out, is a Broadway production written by Lin-Manuel Miranda, and I think it came out in 2015. I might be wrong about that. Again, I haven't done a lot of research into this, so I'm just going off without a script and just speaking freely. So, Hamilton is actually based on how America was formed, how they separated from Britain, and how they actually fought for their freedom and what happened afterwards. It focuses on one of the first founding fathers, which was Hamilton, or Alexander Hamilton. This whole musical is fantastic. I love the songs. I've been obsessed with it. So I started listening to this show. I started watching it actually on Disney Plus, and I saw the first 40 minutes, but I wasn't really invested in it. So I talked to some friends and they were like, maybe do some research about American history and you might be more into it. And I thought that's a good idea, so I gave it a shot. Oh, coming back to a shot. You'll understand that in a minute, but I took my shot. Well, so I decided to do that, and I eventually learned a lot about how America was formed and, how they actually had to fight a lot, and it was pretty tough and it was quite a struggle. So you may not know a lot about me, but I grew up in India and I am living in Canada right now. So my American history knowledge isn't that strong. But because of the show, I'm very fascinated by it, and I have learned a lot since then. And it's only been 5 days? So in order to actually get more into the show, I decided to listen to the soundtrack on Apple Music. So what ended up happening was I ran through the whole album, which runs in at 2 hours and 22 minutes. It's insanely long, but the thing is, it's so freaking catchy and interesting. I loved it, and because of that, I've just been listening to it on loop. This whole album is such a freaking great piece of work that I would really recommend just listening to the album, but that does not do it justice. Listening to the album without the actual visuals is not, it is still great, but it's only half a story. The production of this show is amazing. Let me look up the director's name. So, Hamilton, the musical director is, that's not correct. Alex Nakamura? I thought it was someone else. Who produced the musical? Well, Lin-Manuel Miranda produced it. And yeah, Thomas Gale directed it. That's what I thought. Thomas Gale directed and produced it, and he even shot the movie. And yeah, what else? And this is based on the novel by... Who is this based on? Alexander Hamilton, the novel by Ron Chernow. Alright, so that's the basics. Okay, I'm on Wikipedia right now, so might as well just go through the cast. So David Diggs is in this, who plays... Ooh, who does he play? He plays Thomas Jefferson, and who else? Yeah, Thomas Jefferson's and Lafayette. Renee Ellie Goldsberry plays Angelica Schuyler. Jonathan Groff plays King George III. Christopher Jackson plays George Washington. Then we have Jasmine Cephas Jones, who plays Peggy Schuyler, and Maria Reynolds. Lin-Manuel Miranda obviously plays Alexander Hamilton. Leslie Odom Jr., man, such a fantastic performance by him, plays Aaron Burr. And then we have some other really fantastic people in this play, but Philippa Sue plays Eliza Hamilton, who is Alexander Hamilton's wife. Alright, so we've gotten all the technical stuff out of the way. So let's get back to the story. So the play starts with an introduction to Alexander Hamilton. The introduction song is so freaking fantastic. It just like brings the room down. It's a self-titled song. It's Alexander Hamilton, but it introduces the story and how, I mean, it actually tells you what you're going to expect for the next 2 hours and 40 minutes. It's a long musical, but man, is it worth it. It's so much going on. It's hard to not be invested in it. So it starts with that, and then it leads to the second song, which is Aaron Burr, Sir, which is how Hamilton meets Aaron Burr in 1776, I believe. After that, we come to one of my favorite songs in the whole musical. It's called My Shot. And this is where Hamilton proclaims that he has worked so hard in his life. He has migrated from Caribbean and he has worked his ass off and he has studied and he's come to America, but he still hasn't had the opportunity to prove himself. So he's like, I'm gonna take my shot and I'm gonna work for it. And he works his ass off, by God. So that's the song, and you have all the other characters in it, and it's a really fun track, I must say. If you don't even listen to the musical, just listen to this track and you'll be hooked. That's what hooked me. So actually, I don't know what's the best way to go about this. Should I go through the song list, or should I just think of the story in my mind? And I think I'll do that. Let me just tell you the story without looking at the track list, and then I can come back to the track list to just recommend some songs. Okay, let's do that, because this is, otherwise it's not going to make a lot of sense. So here we go. Story of Hamilton as understood by not even an American immigrant, just an immigrant who has only been to America like twice. So here we go. Alexander Hamilton is a immigrant who came before the American Revolution to America, or in that, I mean, it was not established yet, and he wanted to prove himself. He was very bright, and he just had that thing, you know. He was always yearning to be better. He was always yearning to just prove himself. He wanted to push himself to the limits, and he just was like, screw it, you know, like, I'm gonna take my shot and I'm gonna prove myself. And that's what he did. So we have the story of Alexander Hamilton, and he went to Princeton College, where he had a bit of a scuffle with the bursar over there, which is a very funny sequence of the songs. But yeah, so when he meets Aaron Burr, he actually tells him about Aaron Burr, who also went to Princeton and is a graduate from there, but Aaron Burr was more reserved. So in the second song, you are actually introduced to the different ideologies between the two characters. We have Aaron Burr here, who is a very straightforward guy, but he doesn't really like to reveal a lot about himself. He's always really reserved. He's like, always smile, talk less. That way you'll be able to move forward. You won't actually irritate people, you won't agitate them, and that way you'll play it safe and you'll move forward. Hamilton, on the other way, is really brash. He's like, no, that's not how it is, If you don't stand up for what you believe in, then what's the point? You need to be upfront about what you believe in. And that's what the whole theme of the show is, from what I believe. It's the two point of views clashing again and again and again, because you have Burr on one side, who's played amazingly by Leslie Odom Jr. His voice is fantastic. Honestly, like, it was so beautiful to hear him sing. And on the other side, we have Lin-Manuel Miranda, who plays Hamilton. And Hamilton is so brash, but he is committed to his ideologies, and that's the best part about his character. No matter what happens, he sticks by his guns, and he is gonna always do what he feels is right. So, moving on, we have Hamilton and Burr just chatting, and then they decide to go to a bar, and in the bar they meet three other people. They meet three other people. One is Lafayette, as played brilliantly by David Diggs, and apart from that we have, where did it go? We have Hercules something. So let me bring up that. Maybe I should just keep this open. That will really move this along. So role and principal cast. Hercules Mulligan, as played by Broadway. Oh wow, I don't know how to pronounce that. Una Udawan. Alright. And then we have John Lawrence, who's played by Anthony Ramos. So this is where he meets them, and he introduces himself, and they are on his wavelength. They decide that yes, the revolution is what we need. You can't just try and stand idly by waiting for things to change. And they decide to form a pact that, well, not necessarily a pact, but they decide to actually believe in what they want to do. So they come together and they form a friendship. Soon afterwards, though, we are still getting introduced to everyone, so this is just meeting all the characters and setting a pace. In the meantime, we also meet the Schuyler sisters, who have a lot of... Okay, the Schuyler sisters. Let's get to this. Alright, Schuyler sisters have a rich background, and by rich background I mean they come from a wealthy background. Alright, and their father is a very wealthy man, and so they're just going around town where they're trying to find some suitors, but they don't find anyone that actually interests them until they meet Hamilton. Hamilton is a really ferociously brilliant guy, and two of the sisters are really interested in him. The first one, Angelica, sees that her sister Liza is really yearning for Hamilton, and she's like, yeah, you take him, he's all yours, because she always puts her sister's happiness before anyone else's. So she's like, you know what, just go ahead, it doesn't matter, I'll be okay. I might not ever be satisfied, but it is what it is. I'd rather you be happy than me settling with someone who doesn't have enough credibility in life. He's not from a wealthy background, and he will not be able to provide me with a life that probably I need. So at least you'll be happy. He looks like he loves you, so why not? You go and settle down with him. And Eliza is shown as a very kind and caring character who actually just wants to be with Hamilton. She doesn't care about the money. She just wants to spend her life with him, and that's so sweet. I feel like finding a character who you actually root for, their romance, it's really rare, and it's really great when you actually find something like that. You actually see the connection forming between them, and that's great. So soon after, they get married, and you have this whole song, and the production value of this whole musical is amazing. But in this thing in particular stands out because they decide to do a reverse sequence, and in that reverse sequence, initially you see Eliza's point of view, and after the reverse sequence you see Angelica's point of view of the same night, and the way they show it on screen, it's fantastic. You actually see everyone move around, and it's pretty great. So after that we have that setup, but I think we come back to the war after that, because Hamilton's married now. He celebrates with the boys. Burr tells him that he also has someone in his life, but she is actually married to a British officer, and that's why he can't be with her, because it's not legal. And Hamilton's like, dude, you've got to fight for what you believe in. Like, if you love her, then stand up for her. It doesn't matter if she's married or not. If she loves you, she'll come to you. And the courage, he just like, the courage, oof, the balls on Hamilton. But that's the great thing about him. So we move on from there, and I think now we move to the war. So everything is set up, we are ready for the revolution, but now we are introduced to George Washington, who is a general captain, I believe. I could be wrong again, my history is not the best, so just forgive me if I got any details wrong. So we are introduced to George Washington, who you may or may not know was the first president of the United States. And George Washington is leading a charge against the British Army to free America. And there is a lot of struggle. They are heavily outnumbered, outmanned, and outgunned. And the lyrics are so good. But I'll come back to the music afterwards. I just want to get through the story first. I'm so excited to talk about the music though. The music is so brilliant. Alright, so they keep fighting, and afterwards, what happens? So he calls in Hamilton and Burr, and they run into each other, and Burr suggests that I can probably give you some strategies to fight the war, and he's like, I'm good, I'll just stick to Hamilton for now, that's cool. And Hamilton's like, why don't you let me fight in the war? He's like, no, you are better if you scribe my notes and just stay by my side as an aide. And Hamilton's really pissed. He's like, I want to fight in the war, why are you not allowing me to fight in the war? And he's like, but I need you, you're more valuable here, so just stay here. And Hamilton's like, he's really pissed, and he's like, fine. So that's what happens. And then after that we move on to what is happening here? No. Okay, my shot. You'll be back. Oh yeah. So we have Jonathan Groff now, who plays King George III. He gives such a fantastic performance. It's so comical. You can actually see the pettiness in King George III's face. He's so pissed. He's like a child. He's like, how dare you go to America and not come back? Like, we had an agreement. What the hell, guys? He's so pissed at them, and that song is so fantastic. It's called You'll Be Back, and it's performed in a very fun way by Jonathan Groff, so shout out to him. So we have the right-hand man, where we're introduced to Hamilton as George Washington's right-hand man, and that's where he's like, you need to stick by me. After that we have a Winter's Ball, where he meets Eliza, and okay, so I might have skipped the order a bit, but the story is pretty much the same. So he meets Eliza, they get married, and then we get one of my favorite songs of the whole musical, Wait For It. So here Leslie Odom Jr., who plays Aaron Burr, is just so pissed. He's like, I'll get what I have coming. He just knows what he wants, He's just waiting for it. He's just there. Oh man, how should I explain this? He's just patiently waiting and waiting and waiting that his shot will come. He will get the chance to prove himself. But he's also taken aback that Hamilton is doing so well for himself. Like, Hamilton came from nothing and he's making a name for himself. How is that happening? And he's like, just wait for it. I'll get there. I'll make my mark. And so we just move on from there, and then we're introduced to the war, where George Washington appoints Christopher Lee, I want to say his name is, as a general in a battle, but the General Lee turns out to be a big coward and he just wants to retreat. And George Washington is like, just stay your ground. So in the middle of the fight, he tells Hamilton to make Lafayette the leader, and then Lee just starts running his mouth off afterwards that George Washington is worth nothing and he should just go back to Mount Vernon to like plant tobacco or something. But so this really irks Hamilton. He's like, how dare he? How dare he say these things about my general? Like, he loves George Washington and he's like, how dare he say that? So he wants to duel with Lee, but he can't do that because, well, he's given orders by Washington not to do anything. Washington's like, just let it be. Like, history will speak for itself. You don't need to stand up for me, Like, I've been through enough. My name has been through enough. You don't need to stand up for me. But he's like so pissed. But then we have Lawrence, who's Hamilton's friend and is played by Anthony Ramos, who says, don't worry, Hamilton, I'll stand in the duel for you. You mean you're such a good friend for me, and I'm gonna fight for you instead. So we have a duel, and in the duel we see that Lee and, well, first of all, the rules of the duel explained, and it's a very fun song, or actually it's a really cool way of depicting the rules of a duel. It's called 10 Duel Commandments, and we actually go over the 10 rules that are actually required in a duel. So let me try to explain these rules real quickly. So the first rule of a duel is two people meet, and, well, they're the ones who are going to duel. Then they appoint a number two. After that, the number two meet and they have to actually figure out if they can come to a solution. If they can't come to a solution, then they'll set up a time and a place. Once they do set up a time and a place, then they'll actually come to the meeting ground with the doctor, who just has, some deniability, just that it was a fair fight. After that, the number twos meet again and they try to convince each other, like they try to convince the two people who are about to duel that this shouldn't happen, or if it's justified or not. And then after that, on the 10th spot, after the count of 10, we actually have the shots. So they say that most of the time it doesn't happen, but in the whole play the duel takes place 3 times and all 3 times someone dies, so, or at least gets shot. So there's that. So in this duel, Hamilton is the number 2 of Lawrence and Aaron Burr is actually the number 2 of Lee, which I don't know how that happened, but yeah, it is what happened, so let's go with it. And after that, well, Lee is shot and Hamilton gets in trouble. George Washington is pissed. He keeps saying that, who gave you the right to get into a duel, and like, it wasn't my name that you were trying to protect. You were just doing it for your own sake. Don't try to turn this on me like this is what I wanted. This is not what I wanted. And Hamilton's like, but you have everything. You have your name, you have your land, I have nothing. And George Washington keeps calling him son, and this irks Hamilton. He's like, dude, I'm not your son. Don't call me your son. Because Hamilton is an orphan, so it really bugs him, and that's so great. The confrontation, it ends with Hamilton just shouting like, don't call me your son. And he's like, I'm your commander, Alexander, and go home. And this silence. But afterwards, Hamilton goes home to Eliza, and that's when he realizes Eliza is a month pregnant, and he's really upset that why didn't she tell him? But she's like, I tried to, but you had to fight the war. And he's like, the war is still going on, but this is also important. So yeah, so he is about to have a kid, and it's really sweet, the song, but it actually just stay together. On the war front, though, we have some good news. We have everything's dire and everything's dark, but we have a light of hope, and it's played by Lafayette by David Diggs, who is so good at this whole musical. I can't stop beaming about him. He's amazing. So he comes in with a French accent and he's just like jumping all over the place, and they bring some extra reinforcements from France and they help America push back Britain, and he's like, you know what we need, right? And George Washington is like, yeah, I know. And they go back to Hamilton and he's like, we need you back. And that's when it happens. The final war, and yeah, Britain is defeated and America wins its freedom. Everyone is happy. There's cheering everywhere. Like, I don't know if I'm imagining half of this or not, but like people are running and they like ring the bells and everything. Everyone is just joyous that America has received its freedom. And now what? What happens once a country is free, right? Like, fighting for your freedom is one thing, but establishing the rules for that country are so difficult. Well, this is where the next Jonathan Groff performance comes in as King George III. He's like, what comes next? Like, he's so sad that we had an agreement. Like, why are you doing this, right? Like, this is not what we decided. You were gonna come back. And he's like, fine, you made your choice, now stick by it. You don't even know how hard it is to lead, so just stay over there, and deal with the consequences. What comes next is a beautiful song by Leslie Odom Jr. where he just talks about his professor's love for Theodosia. Is that how you pronounce it? I can't remember. But that's where he actually just, I think this is the song where they both have their children, and Leslie Odom Jr. names his daughter after his mother, who he loved but maybe couldn't have. I'm not sure if he actually got together with Theodosia or not, but I don't think they cover that, but oh well. And Hamilton talks to his son Philip, who was born, and yeah, this is just moving the story forward. And just to set up, this is where they ended up, after the war. They both had children and they were really happy and it's peaceful. But what now? The revolution is over, so what's next? And this is where the chart buster comes in. It's called Non-Stop, and this is where I'm a horrible singer. Should I even attempt to sing this? There is a catch in the song which I just love. It's like, why do you write like you're running out of time? Why do you write like you're running out of time? Oh, and there's more stuff ahead, but yeah, I'm not that good a singer, so I'm not going to even attempt it. So this song is what establishes that so much has happened, but how do you actually set up a new country? And this is where Hamilton has an idea. He goes to become a lawyer. He goes to study to become a lawyer, and so does Aaron Burr. And then they meet in the courtroom and they defend the first murder case in America. But after that, what next? So Hamilton comes to Burr and he's like, will you help defend a client? And Burr's like, okay, but who is it? And Hamilton's like, the Constitution of the America. Of America? No, Constitution of America. And he's like, I'm not going to do that. And Hamilton's again repeating the theme of this whole thing. From what I understand, it's that if you don't stand up for it, then no one will. Like, we fought this hard for this moment, then why aren't you actually like, just stick by it, like, you've put in so much energy and effort into it, why not just stick by it? And Burr's like, I'll hold my plans close to my chest, you don't know what I'm thinking, so you don't actually get to decide if I'm making the right call or not. So he then moves on and he decides to write the Federation Papers, which were a series of essays that were gonna convince the public that, the Constitution needs amendments and they need to be really fair, and they keep talking about liberty and equality and unity, and that's what the Constitution needs to address. So they originally decided to write 25 essays, but ended up writing about 81, I believe. And of those 81, Hamlet, no, that's a different thing. Hamilton wrote 51. And yeah, so that's when the song kicks in. Why do you write like you're running out of time? Why do you write like you're running out of time? And something more. Yeah. I wish I like maybe had listened to it maybe once more, but it's fine. I've been listening to it all day. It's fine if I don't remember the exact lyrics. But yeah. And then we have something that I haven't seen in a Hollywood movie in a long time, even though this is a stage production, but oh well. We get a 1 minute intermission, guys. Yeah. It's so rare to have an intermission in Hollywood movies, but hey, we got one in this movie. So let's take a quick break at this point. Alright, that was fun. And now we come back to the second half of the Broadway musical. And it's what happens after the revolution. Like, we've freed our country, now what? And now we are introduced to Thomas Jefferson, who is again played by David Diggs, and he gives such a over the top. It's not over the top, but it's a really exuberant performance. It's really it has a lot of flair to it, and I loved it. So David Diggs comes back as Thomas Jefferson from France, and he's like, "What did I miss?" And people are like, "You missed the whole damn revolution, you fool." No, they don't actually say that, but that's what the audience perceives. So he was in France for the whole revolution. He did help with some of the documents and the Constitution, but yeah. Again, if any of this is factually incorrect, then please forgive me, because I did not learn this growing up. So this is my knowledge from the past 4 days. So please forgive me if I made any mistakes. Yeah, so once he comes home to Virginia, he has a letter waiting for him. And the letter is from the first president of the United States, George Washington. And the letter states that he's been appointed as the state secretary. Ooh. And he's like, wow, I need to go to New York right away. And in New York, he's introduced to who else but Hamilton. And along with Hamilton, he meets his friend James Madison, who's also played by Onadowan. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I'm so sorry if I'm not. But he meets him, and yeah, that's where the story kicks in. So Thomas Jefferson can be considered as the main antagonist of the story, honestly, because on every point, he and Burr both bring Hamilton to a screeching halt whenever they come into the story, because they always side on a different wavelength. Yeah, just seriously, they always have something and an opposite point of view. But hey, that's what makes it a fun story, right? Without an antagonist, how can a protagonist seem good? Although I'm gonna talk about the issues afterwards, but let's just get through the stories. Alright, so Thomas Jefferson goes to New York, and that's where he meets Hamilton and James Madison? James Madison, please be correct. Is it? Yeah, James Madison. Yeah, I was correct. Yeah. Okay, so he meets James Madison, and James Madison is like, hey, dude, Hamilton wants us to just have. So Hamilton has made the treasury of the country, right? So James Madison is like, he wants to just absolve all debt and just have a national bank. And in a national bank, all the credit will start from scratch, and then all New York's debt will be... Okay, I think I'm explaining this properly, so let me try it again. So Virginia, where Thomas Jefferson and Madison and George Washington are from, has no debt, and New York, on the other hand, had a lot of debt, probably because they had a war. I mean, I'm just assuming. But so they're like, it doesn't make sense that one state should bear the debt of another state. Like, that doesn't happen. And Hamilton's like, if we don't do this now, it's just gonna lead to more problems later. Like, we need to have a clean start so that everything is done fairly. Like, all states are well, taken care of. And that's what he's proposing. But the Virginians are really stuck in the ways. So now we have a cabinet meeting, and this cabinet meeting is like no other cabinet meeting I've ever seen before, because it's like a rap battle. If you've ever seen a rap battle, whether it be in 12 Mile or 8 Mile, what am I saying? It's really late at night. I'm recording at like 3 a.m. So please forgive me. So 8 Mile, and then they have a rap battle, and this rap battle is so amazing. And this is where Thomas Jefferson just like brings his slams, and Hamilton just like counters it. But you can listen to it later. How it ends is that George Washington is very clear. He's like, Hamilton, you need the votes. Without the votes, your proposal will not go through in the Congress, so there's no point. So now Hamilton needs to come up with a way how to convince the Congress that his way is actually going to help the country in the long run. Like, don't think short term. You need to actually have a better plan in place for your economy. And this is where the song comes, Take a Break. And this is where we are introduced to Angela, who comes back from London to meet her sister Eliza. And Eliza wants her husband Hamilton to just come up with her to upstate, where her father has a lovely lake house, and they want to stay there for the summer. But Hamilton's like, no way, I need to finish this document. If I don't get this to Congress, I can probably lose my job. And he's like, so he's pretty adamant, and Eliza tries to convince him, but he's like, nah, it's not gonna happen. So they just move along, and yeah. Now this is the part of the story where it's really iffy. It's true, it actually happened, but this is the part of the story where it's important to show your protagonist as real characters, and that means they have some negative, characteristics. Like, that's the best way to say that. So they have some negative behavior or negative characteristics to them, and that makes a compelling narrative, but that also makes me like the protagonist less. And that's what happens here. So what happens when Eliza and Angela and the kids go to upstate is that Hamilton, while he's working on the documents, and he's so tired and vulnerable that he meets a young lady, and the young lady acts like a damsel in distress. She comes to him for help, and he, as a gentleman, offers to give her a loan and walk her to her place. But once they reach her place, she asks him inside, and they soon go to her bed, and stuff happens, and this happens again, and it happens again, and it happens again. And after a month or so, Hamilton receives a letter from that lady's husband, who's like, you've been cheating on me and your wife with my wife, so if you could be so kind, just provide me with some money, and I can keep this hush. No one needs to know. You can continue seeing my wife, but no one will know about this if you keep paying me money. Hamilton is such a... this is why I don't like his character. He stands for so much, but he is not satisfied, as Angela predicted. He just wants more. He keeps yearning. He's just like, needs more, he needs more, he needs more. And then this is where I stop actually rooting for him, because if he has his ideals and he's standing up for them, that's one thing. But cheating on his wife, who loved him with all her heart, that's crossing a line, and I cannot condone that. But hey, it happened in real life, so I mean, it is what it is. I can't really. Yeah, let's move on. So this happened, and then we move on to Leslie Odom Jr.'s performance, which is another fantastic song. Another one of my favorites. It's called The Room Where It Happens, The Room Where It Happens, The Room Where It Happens. I wanna be in the room where it happens, the room where it happens, the room where it happens. So after that, after the whole debacle with the John Reynolds, the husband who's actually blackmailing him, we see the story move forward where Hamilton has a meeting set up with Thomas Jefferson and James Madison, and they're gonna work on getting votes for Hamilton's proposal. And so we see Hamilton run into Burr, and then they have a nice chit chat, and he's like, "Oh, I'll do what you asked me to do, I'll talk less and I'll smile more." And Burr is like, "Oh, that's cool." And then Thomas Jefferson and Madison come and they go to a secret room, and Burr is just waiting outside. He's like, "Damn it, I want to be in that room. I will work my ass off to be in that room. I want to be in the room where it happens." And then no one knows what happened in that room. It's all hearsay. Afterwards, they come outside and a decision has been made. The decision was that Hamilton would be given the votes to go ahead with this proposal to unite all the country's debt and make a national bank if we got the capital of the country closer to Virginia. That was the midpoint that was reached. And wow, what a genius stroke by Hamilton. Like, really, he got what he wanted and he gave them what they wanted, but in the long run, it didn't really matter where the capital actually was. So it was a genius stroke by Hamilton, and it actually worked out because the country, in the long run, actually, it worked for the country, and a centralized bank was a great decision. So we have that, and yeah, it's just sad. But because everyone's so pissed off, we have. Wait, hang on. I think I'm missing something. Yeah, after the room where it happened, we have something else. This is not where. Okay, I might be jumping ahead, but let's see. So once that decision has been made, we see that Aaron Burr, who's really pissed, wants to actually go ahead in election. He wants to have a political career. So he starts fighting. He stands up against Hamilton's father-in-law, another Schuyler, who was previously elected, and I think he steps down, and Burr changes party to stand up against Hamilton's father-in-law. It's a little confusing, but I think I got it. So they do that, and yeah, so Hamilton comes up to Burr and he's like, "What the hell? Like, you don't stand for anything." And he's like, "Oh, I stand for something. I want to do this. I've always wanted to climb ahead, and I'm doing what you did. Like, I'm believing in myself." And he's like, they have a fight, and it's like, nah. And so we move on to the second cabinet battle, and this cabinet battle was about. Oh, this cabinet battle was about the French Revolution. Yes. I think this is where the second battle happened. So in the second cabinet battle, France is going for a revolution against Britain, and Thomas Jefferson, who was in France for such a long time, he's like, we need to help our allies. Like, our allies, like Lafayette, stood up for us when we needed their help. So we need to actually help them out. And Hamilton's like, if we keep fighting other people's war, our country is already debt ridden. Like, it's going to be pretty horrible for us. Like, what are we going to do? We can't actually, it's not feasible to stand in another war. And he's like, but they helped us. We signed a treaty. You can't do this. And Hamilton's like, we did sign a treaty, but that doesn't mean anything because their king is dead. Like, they have no leader. And George Washington sadly agrees. So this really pisses off Thomas Jefferson and James Madison. And then they're like, you are only in this because Washington is on your side. If he's not on your side, then you are nothing. And so Thomas Jefferson decides to step down as the Secretary of State and run for the President of the United States. When Hamilton learns about this from Washington, he's so happy. It's really funny to see him so excited that Jefferson is stepping down, and he's so just waiting to write a bad publication about him, he's just like so eager. But then when Washington tells him like he's standing up to run for presidency, he's like, he doesn't stand a chance against you. And then Washington's like, well, I'm not gonna run for presidency. He has a clear shot. And that's when Hamilton's like, what? Why? And he's like, George Washington's like, for one last time, I just want to have a peaceful, life. And I just want to go ahead and just go back to Virginia and live a peaceful life and just plant stuff and just have a nice and quiet life. So Hamilton's not happy, obviously, because George Washington by his side was a lot of support, but it is what it is, and we move on. Now we come to Jonathan Groff's or King George III's last song. Is it the last song? Yeah, I believe it's the last song. And he's like, I know him. Who does he know? The next president of the United States, John Adams. He's like, I had no idea you could even step down from leadership. George Washington, is that even possible? And so we have all the performances by Jonathan Groff. They're on the side. They're not really adding much to the story apart from some levity, but yeah, it's still really fun to see him because his performance is so sweet, and it's like he's an egomaniac, but his performance has such childishness to it that it's a really fun combination. So we then move on to the Adams administration, and this is, sadly, John Adams, from what is depicted in the play, I don't know a lot about him, so I can't really say, but from the play it seems like he wasn't a really great president. He didn't really do much for the country, so that's what I'm gonna take it as. But now we have Thomas Jefferson as the vice president, because apparently at that time there was a rule that if you stood in an election and you came in second, then you automatically become the vice president of the country, which doesn't make much sense, and it's addressed later in the play, but yeah, so that's where we are at. So because they were so pissed with Hamilton, Thomas Jefferson and No, not Leslie. Why do I keep forgetting his name? James Madison. Yeah. James Madison and Thomas Jefferson just, they were like, you know what? We need to get rid of Hamilton some way. And then they find some discrepancy in his paperwork, or, they find some letters, or there was some financial issue where Hamilton's financial things were not in order, and they thought that Hamilton might be actually siphoning off some money from the National Bank, and they go to confront him, and they're like, Hamilton, you turned out to be a traitor, like, what the hell, this is not cool. And Hamilton's like, you know what, screw you, you're blaming me for things that you don't even understand. Like, seriously, do you really want to know? They're like, yeah. He's like, will you tell anyone? They're like, no, we'll keep it to ourselves. And Hamilton's like, here. So he shows them the letters from John Reynolds or James Reynolds, whatever his name was. The Reynolds letters where he was blackmailing Hamilton for sleeping with his wife. And John Reynolds, I think. And then he just so he's shows them the letter, and they're like taken aback. They're like, what? Like, Hamilton, you did this? Like, seriously? We thought you had a clean image. Like, but he's like, yeah, so I did have an affair, and it's not virtuous, but well, it is not technically legal, so you can't really like blame me. And they're like, yeah, fine, we won't blame you, but this is not cool. And then he talks to Aaron Burr. Hamilton talks to Aaron Burr, and he's like, please don't use this against me in the future. And Aaron Burr's like, you know how rumors go, like they always rise in the future, they aren't stopped. So Hamilton's like, screw this, before anyone else knows, I'm gonna write myself out of this. Hamilton was one of the best writers at the time, and he believed that his words could actually just save anything. So he's like, I'm gonna show my innocence by just writing about it. And he released the Reynolds pamphlet. And in the Reynolds pamphlet, he wrote everything, all the details. And that breaks Eliza down. He just publishes the papers, and he's like, this is what all happened. And I had an extramarital affair with Maria many times, and inside my own house whenever Eliza and the kids weren't home, and that just breaks Eliza. And she's like, I'll burn down all the letters, everything you've written to me, and I'm putting myself out of this narrative because you don't deserve it. I gave you everything and you broke my trust, and I don't want people to know how I reacted to this situation, so I'm just burning down all the old letters that you sent me so that no one has any track of what lovely things you said to me. And this is just, there's so much like sadness in this song. It's called Burn, and it just breaks your heart. Like, Hamilton, why did you do this? Like, why did you mess it up? But then we just move on from there, and time passes, and we now see a grown-up Philip, and he's in college. Philip is obviously Eliza and Hamilton's son. And what we see now is someone was bad-mouthing Hamilton, and Philip obviously could not stand for it. He's like, he's my father. How dare you speak about my father like this? And the other guy's like, he's a crook just like you. And Philip Hamilton, I should say, is just pissed. So he orders the other guy for a duel. He's like, meet me at this time. And he goes to his father, and he's like, I've never actually done a duel, so what are the rules for this? And Hamilton just like talks him through it, but he's like, you don't actually want the other person's blood on your hands. You will not be able to live a satisfying life afterwards. It changes a person. And he's like, don't do this to your mother. Promise me you will not shoot at the person. You will shoot in the air. Philip, being a good son, he's like, I promise I will not do anything to tarnish your name. So he goes for the duel, and as promised, they do the 10 pace count. And on the even before the count of 10, so Philip starts moving his gun, and he starts moving it towards the sky, and the other guy, before the count of 10, shoots Philip on the side. Philip starts bleeding, and he's rushed to the hospital. But over there, we see that Hamilton rushes in, and he, along with Eliza, stand by his side, and they're like, please stay alive, don't say anything, just stay quiet, we are here with you. And Eliza just breaks down. Like, obviously she's a mother, like, it's really heartbreaking. And soon Philip passes away. It's so terrible. This leads to Hamilton moving with Eliza uptown, where they sing about how quiet it is. Their life has changed completely, and it's unimaginable because losing a child is considered one of the worst griefs in the world. Like, it's one of the worst things that can happen to anyone, and sadly they have to live their lives like that. And we go through a song where Hamilton is just crooning that it's never been this quiet, and he's just walking around aimlessly without anyone to talk to, and it's just the show quiets down and it becomes a bit mellow, and things start to just go slowly on and on and on. And then bam, Thomas Jefferson just comes in and he's like, let's get back to the politics. And now we have the election of 1800, where Aaron Burr decides to stand up against Thomas Jefferson for the presidency. And this is the first time Aaron Burr anyone decided to do an door-to-door campaigning, and Aaron Burr just like straight up went against Thomas Jefferson, and he's like, he's an elitist and he's not going to understand your values. And even Madison was like, Thomas, Aaron Burr is just like a less extreme version of you, so be careful. Everything seems divided. No one knows who this election is going to go towards in favor of. And then people start asking Hamilton, who are you going to vote? And the song builds and builds and builds. No one knows where Hamilton lies. And then finally it is revealed. Hamilton chose Thomas Jefferson. Everyone's shocked. Like, why? He hated Thomas Jefferson, and he addresses it. He's like, I confronted with Thomas Jefferson on 75 different fronts, but at least he believes in something. Aaron Burr, he believes in nothing. This breaks Burr down. He's like, after everything we've been through, everything we've done, you hated Thomas Jefferson, and still, despite everything, you kept me from the room where it happens. It's heartbreaking. And then he's so pissed that he writes a letter to Hamilton asking him for a duel. Hamilton, who's been through so much, and he was still quite young, but he's been through so much, he accepts. He's like, there is no convincing you out of this. Let's meet for a duel. They come to a place which was actually near Philip's place of death, so it's actually quite emotional for Hamilton. They bring a doctor and they do the whole 10 pace count. Hamilton is wearing his glasses, so Burr is thinking like, oh, he's definitely going to shoot me. So he's really serious. And then right at the count of 10, the music slows down. Hamilton has his song, his final song. And he's like, I've lived a full life, and if this is where I end up, is it worth it? And the whole song goes like this. It's in slow motion. Things are moving slowly. And then the bullet comes and it hits Hamilton. Yeah. Sadly, Hamilton passes away. Then the story cuts back to his legacy. Legacy was another theme that runs throughout the story because Hamilton was always obsessed with his legacy. He just wishes that people remember him for the good and not for the bad mistakes he's made. We see Thomas Jefferson and James Madison actually celebrating Hamilton's decisions and all the things he had actually put forth. They were like, his financial plan was a great success and we cannot even, dismantle it even if we tried. And they were like, we've tried. After that, it cut back to Eliza, and Eliza is seen broken. She's been through so much heartbreak. She lost her son and now she lost her husband. We see Eliza just breaking down. She's like, I have so much time left and you don't have enough. I wish the next 50 years that I have, you could have instead, and that you could have lived this life. You would have made it more beautiful and you would have made it more worth it. You stand for so many things that you just ran out of time. Eliza ended up setting up one of the first privatized orphanages, I believe, in America. And that was pretty incredible. And she's like, I want to do so much. I want to abolish slavery and I want to do all this. And you would have always been better than me. And slowly, the music just starts fading away. And then we see she smiles and there's Hamilton in the distance. And I believe that's where she ends up. I think that's where the story wants to depict that she passes away and then she ends up with Hamilton and they live happily ever after. I think that's what the story wants to depict, but it's a little ambiguous, so let's stay by that. But yeah, that, ladies and gentlemen, was the story of Hamilton the musical. I do want to analyze it a little bit now, so I'm just gonna stop this for a quick second and then come back right away. That, my friends, was the story of Hamilton, the American musical. This musical has fantastic songs. That's what actually gripped me. I wasn't that interested in the story of America or how it got free. I mean, America's a cool place and all, but yeah, come on. I'm kidding. But the songs were amazing, and let me just mention some of my favorite tracks. So if you just want to hear them on Spotify or Apple Music, just go ahead. Special shout out to Alexander Hamilton, the song My Shot, and Skylar Sisters is really nice. I really like the tune in that. Satisfied is a great one. Wait for it. Everything with Leslie Odom Jr. is amazing. His voice is so smooth. I loved it. After that, well, I have to say, The Room Where It Happens, the cabinet battles are great as well. And Non-Stop is a really fun song. Honestly, they're all amazing, but what I would recommend is go through the whole album. Just go through it straight away. Don't shuffle it. Don't do it. Just listen to it. Just sit and listen to it. Or I listen to it while at work. So just listen to the whole album once, and that way you will have a good sense of what to expect, and you'll even learn a bit of the story and like actually have an expectation about what you'll get to see when you see it on Disney Plus if you choose to. So this whole musical gave me a new perspective on the American Revolution, which I had no idea about, and I'm really grateful for that. I've learned so much in the past few days. I have also learned there are some criticisms about the musical which I want to address. So when it comes to the art versus the artist debate, I usually side it's a case by case basis, because well, a lot of people work on a certain project, and when so many people work on a project, you don't want to just dismiss it just without thinking. But the inclusion of some individuals in that project make it a bit iffy. So not that I'm saying like anyone included in this whole experience has an iffy thing, not that we know of, but I just want to say, like, when it comes to the art versus artist debate, it's a little iffy, and I just leave it to you guys to decide what you feel comfortable with. There's no right or wrong answer. I mean, whatever some people did, it's horrible, and I definitely do not, like, say that like no one should do those things. But yeah. So when it comes to this musical, I have heard a lot of criticisms about how it might not be historically accurate, which I get and also understand, but being a musical, it's not like a 2.5 hour musical, it's not going to be that accurate, and they try to incorporate a lot of story elements into it, so I'm a little okay with that part. What I would have liked a bit more was the incorporation a bit of the how they stood against the slavery aspect and addressed how they actually took the land from, I don't know what the politically correct term is, but the Native Americans. don't believe they address that at all, and maybe they should have, in a way, just so that, just to acknowledge that this is what America is built on, and this is a part of the history that should not be ignored. Apart from that, I think Hamilton is a fantastic musical, and I got to learn a lot. If you haven't heard any of the songs, I would highly recommend them because A, they're catchy as hell, and B, they're very brilliantly written. Like Lin-Manuel Miranda did an incredible job writing these songs, and oh boy, I am listening to the songs on loop every day. So that's I highly recommend this musical, or at least the songs, if you don't want to see the whole musical, but which I would really recommend seeing the musical because it adds a whole different layer to the songs. It actually provides a lot of context to the songs, and I would really appreciate it. So guys, I want to bring the first episode of Impromptucast to an end, and yeah, thank you for joining me, talking all things about Hamilton from my perspective, a guy who knew nothing about the American Revolution until the past 4 days. So yeah, that's me, a complete noob when it comes to this, but hey, it's how it goes. I just wanted to speak off the top of my mind, and I had no script for this, no prior research, just decided to speak, so here I am. Well, it's 4 a.m, so I should probably sleep, but I'll just do a quick sign off. Oh, alright, so everyone follow me on Cinebait. So I have Cinebait on Twitter, Cine_bait on Instagram, and Cinebait on YouTube. Please follow me anywhere, and if you have any questions, if you want to reach out, these places are great to reach out to me. Well, it's been a fantastic night. I hope you guys have a great day, and well, you'll probably hear back from me soon, and I'll come back with a proper scripted series as well. That's just taking a bit longer than I expected, but hey, in the meantime, you have an Impromptucast, so have fun, and I hope you really liked it, and if you do, please let me know. Yeah, I would really appreciate it, and any feedback you have, because I'm just starting out, so any feedback would be greatly appreciated. Thank you, and take care.